PSYCH drug shooters. Florida shooter was on medication, reports Miami Herald, just like nearly all other mass shooters. This is from Mike Adams and the Natural News. Nearly every mass shooting over the last 20 years has one thing in common, and it's not guns. It's actually psychiatric medications. And now, to no one's surprise, we are learning that Nicholas Cruz, the shooter who killed 17 students and staff at a Florida high school, was reportedly taking mental health medications, reports the Miami Herald. In the story entitled "Florida School Shooting, Suspect was an Ex-Student Who Was Flagged as a Threat," the Miami Herald described Nicholas Cruz as a troubled teen with few friends and an obsessive interest in weapons. Quotes Barbara Kumbatovich, an in-law of the family, who said she believed Nicholas Cruz was on medication to deal with his emotional fragility. Other media sources, even the Washington Post, have reported Cruz was treated in a mental health clinic, which are of course well known for dosing up patients with mind-altering psychiatric drugs. Psychiatric drugs are the common thread in nearly all school shootings. The website PSYCHDrugShooters.com details over 100 school shootings carried out by individuals who are taking psychiatric medications. The Natural News has reported on this phenomenon for over a decade, with stories like Illinois shooter was treated with psych meds prior to shooting rampage. Xanax linked to mass shootings confirmed yet again. Mainstream media avoiding any mention of link between psychiatric drugs and violent shootings. The left-wing media predictably exploits every school shooting to push its agenda of repealing the Second Amendment and confiscating guns from law-abiding citizens, turning the United States of America into a police state where corrupt government has a monopoly of firepower. But they refuse to consider the mind-altering effects of psychiatric medication, which emerges in nearly every school shooting in recent memory. Psychiatric medications cause shooters to believe they are playing a video game. The working explanation behind the psych drug link to mass shootings is that psychiatric drugs cause shooters to believe they are playing a video game. The medication disconnects the brain from the real world, and the actions they are taking don't seem real to them. One of the ways SSRI drugs and other psych drugs actually work is by disconnecting the brain from emotional reality. This is widely considered to be a treatment for depression. See my music video SSR Lies for a musical rendition of how this works. Notably, such drugs do not actually resolve the cause of depression. They merely cause individuals to mentally disconnect from their real life, making the causes of depression seem far away or not real. The same biochemical mechanism, when combined with a disturbed individual who may have been subjected to extreme bullying by classmates, can cause that person to act out a mass shooting as if they were playing a video game. It doesn't seem real to them until the drugs wear off, at which point they express extreme sorrow once they realize their actions were real. This is exactly what's happening with Nicholas Cruz. Until America gets serious about the links between psychiatric medications and mass shootings, we'll never solve this problem, and more mass shootings can be expected. For 10 years, I've been warning America about the psychiatric link between psychiatric medications and mass shootings. As I wrote in Natural News almost a decade ago, entitled Orlando Shooter, U.S. Army Fort Hood Shooter, both linked to psychiatric drugs. Till we halt the chemical holocaust being perpetrated against our world by the psychiatric drugging industry, we will continue to see more of these violent, drug-induced shootings take place. Count on it. Psych drugs cause violence, and the more psych drugs are prescribed, the more violence we'll see. According to MedWatch statistics, 63,000 people in the U.S. have committed suicide on antidepressant drugs. That's more than 10 times the number of Americans who have died from H1N1 swine flu, by the way. The mainstream media absolutely refuses to tell you the truth about the link between psychiatric drugs and violent killings. But it's the obvious connection in nearly every single shooting that's taken place in recent memory. the Virginia Tech shooting, the Stephen Mirziak, Illinois shooting, the Omaha Mall shooting, and so on. 2 years earlier, in December of 2007, I publicly predicted more school shootings would take place among psychiatric medication patients. There will be more. I hate to be accurate about this grisly prediction because I grieve for the families of those lost to pharmaceutically induced violence. But the truth is that until we stop drugging our children with psychotropic drugs, the shootings are not going to stop. Left-wing Hollywood elitists like Jimmy Kimmel want to cry on stage and blame the NRA or President Trump, but the real answer is that the psychiatric medications are the root enablers behind most mass shootings. And I've been reporting this for over a decade. Yet, the political influence of the drug giants is so powerful that no serious investigation has ever been conducted to the psych drug medication habits of mass shooters. America, it turns out, really doesn't want to stop mass shootings as much as it wants to have easy access to psychiatric medications. Until we take a serious look at this issue, the violence will continue. And even if you ban guns, killers will start using vehicles, bombs, swords, or other weapons to carry out their deranged intent. Now you know the full truth about psychiatric drugs and mass shootings. And that is from Mike Adams at the Natural News. This is something I noticed going back 4 years when I actually talked about Elliot Rodgers and the shooting in Santa Barbara. Elliot Rodgers was on several different medications, even though he was bad with women. He was shy. He was withdrawn. He had a symptom of Asperger's. But the biggest kicker in what he was doing is that he was on drugs. And the drugs he was taking that his parents put him on wasn't making him feel better. So I do believe he was actually taking Xanax or something like that. He was actually self-medicating. And once he started self-medicating with that particular drug, he actually killed his 3 roommates, and then he went on a rampage killing other people. And even his parents knew that he was in trouble because they were on the freeway trying to get to him. And right after that, I did do an article on, there was 4 more shooters on the West Coast that had similar profiles. A lot of people will tell you that this is the alt-right. They'll tell you this is gun violence. They'll tell you a whole bunch of the other things, but they will not tell you about the drug problem. They will not tell you about the psychotropic drugs. They will not tell you that stuff that they put the little boys on or put our children on, they carry into adulthood. This is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. And everybody wants to talk about everything from poverty to racism. And when you mention that these people are on these drugs, that it may be a factor, everybody wants to poo-poo it. Something to think about, more food for thought. I'm actually thinking about doing or reading into the record of the article that Mike Adams actually talked about, which is about the mass shootings. I'm actually thinking about doing that. I probably will look into that and maybe do that later because it's something that needs to be talked about. Like I said, I am an amoral pragmatist. So even though I am a Pan-African and pro-black and all the other stuff that goes along with it, I am practical. You know, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. If it's not the truth, then it's not real to me. So I will not call it racism when it's not. And I'm not going to call it alt-right when it's not. I'm not going to call it white supremacy when it's not. I would call a spade, a heart, a club, and so on and so forth. So I believe in being accurate. And when I'm not accurate, then I am wrong. If it's not accurate, then I have to change my stance because I am not accurate. And so I've been following this psychotropic drug since talking back to Prozac, which is almost 30 years ago. So this is not new to me. Even back in Columbine, they traced it back to drugs, which is something else they didn't talk about. In the same video game-like scenario where they actually thought they were playing a video game because they were on this drugs, the same thing that he just said Mike Adams just said, going right now into the future. And I'm sure if we talk to Cruz, he'll probably tell you the exact same thing. And they'll bury it under the rug. Because the pharmaceutical industry makes a whole lot of money off of these drugging these kids. And basically so do the federal government. But that's all I got for this one. This is BGS out, and I will see you guys on the next one.